I was thinking about what I was going to say, and there are two significant incidents that affect everybody that's here. The first thing is that after I did military service, and I came out, I was 21 years old, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do or where I was going to go, but my father was we had his own business, menswear business. And I thought, well, maybe at some point I might join him in that business. I'm not really sure what I want to do. So then I applied for a job in Regent Street with Austin Reed, which was still there. It's a big, quite prestigious menswear store. And they hired me. And the significance to everybody here is that...
Close that door.
They had shops on board the Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so if I hadn't gone to Austin Reed, I wouldn't have been on the liners. And for a month I worked on the Queen Elizabeth, which went from Southampton to New York and back and forth. And on one of those trips, I met somebody who is, that one pictured in there. There were some tourists coming from Washington, and they were going to do like a European tour. And one of them, his name was Dick Moore. They said, "Oh, we'll look you up when we're in London." And I forgot all about it and went back to the main store in Austin Reed, and they did come and look me up. And we went out that evening to Hampstead, to one of those pubs in Hampstead. And I said, well, it'd be nice if to go to America, because all I was seeing was New York and then coming back again. And they sponsored me to come here, at least Dick Moore did, because you had to have a sponsor. You had to guarantee that you weren't going to be homeless, exactly, to be able to come here, and he provided that for me. He didn't have to, but he did. And Peter Carley had his mother's brother lived in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
And when he found out, because we were friends in the UK, in London, that I was planning to leave and go, he said, well, I'd like to come too. And it took a few months to get everything processed. And in the meantime, I had changed my job and I went to Jaeger, which is where I met Keith, because he was working at Jaeger. So I'd been to Austin Reed. And this all happened. So the point is, if I hadn't been on that trip, none of you would be here, because
right. Well, what happened to
it was one of those
different looking people would be here.
Yeah, this person would, but there'd be different people in a different part of the United States. It just happened that they were in Washington, and that's why I ended up in Washington.
Well, what happened to him, your sponsor?
I don't know.
Oh, you lost touch.
Yeah, so.
What was his name again?
His name was Dick Moore.
Richard Moore?
Dick Moore. And he had another guy's name was Bob Fraser, who was his colleague.
Oh, gotcha. That's why they wanted to sponsor you.
I thought of it too.
Yeah. So that's yeah, because Keith was asking me last night what I did with the corks. Anyway,
with the what?
No, forget that. I'll move on. Now, you needed to know another thing that ties us all together is, once coming to Washington, I was working at Rogers Peak along with Keith, because he came a few months later, and we were working there, and decided to go out west. So I've been here about 18 months or so. And we went out to San Francisco. We drove out there. We camped along the way, went all over the US out to San Francisco.
Nice.
He got a job with the brother of the owner of Lewis and Thomas Sauce in Union Square in San Francisco. And I decided to try my luck doing something else. And that didn't work out, selling encyclopedias. I sold some encyclopedias, but it's not the way to go. And I started to run out of money, so decided not to do that, and I went around San Francisco downtown, see if I could get a job in the same kind of thing, in the menswear thing. But apparently there was nothing going, and then I came back to the unit and I said to Keith, I can't keep this going much longer because I don't have any money, but I know if I go back to Washington, I can get a job. So I said, okay. So I left the next day and I drove back. It took 3 days to come back, but I was able to come back
With
and
Keith
get
or
a
by
job.
yourself?
No, by myself. He stayed and came back a few weeks, a few months actually, later. And this is the interesting thing. The next day after I left, there was a phone call, and one of those places I had visited wanted me to come back because they were going to hire me. So if I hadn't left that day, I would still have been
In California.
And again, people here would not be.
So it all rested on one
So
day.
there's two.
He was there all for months.
There's two
It was just
events.
one day.
Two events that.
When did you meet Mom then?
Well, I knew her before. We sort of briefly met before we went out west, and when I came back, I contacted her, and in fact,
I mean, your little black book. He has the lever.
Alright.
I don't have the leather, but see, I decided to come back to this.
Can you turn it around so that you can get on
I'll
camera?
pass it around.
Yeah, so
You look like you're kind of Indian in it.
Whoa,
so who
look
could,
at Nana.
so who could resist that?
That's nice to come back from California.
What is that?
You see Nana?
I have a question today.
I like the pose. You're like,
Oh, whose cigarettes are those? Yes, John, come back from California.
oh, look at that
Oh, wait.
Bring a cigarette later.
That's Nana.
So I figured that that was worth coming back for.
Yeah,
one. Yes.
I
Look at this. Look at Nana. Woo, hot number.
Who's
I love that.
Who's
You're
that in the
so
middle?
cute.
You're closer down to David.
Oh, my.
That's your
That's her
mother.
mother.
See, she didn't wear sunblock too much either.
Yeah, yeah.
That's your grandmother.
My sins. Well, you know why? You know what I was taking? Well, I was taken in Palm Springs,
Oh.
where it was very, very hot there all the time.
I love that picture. This is
No, it was. It was very hot there all the time in Palm Springs.
Hot number. And then
I left it photoshopped as with John's picture right there.
yeah.
And then, to
funny.
conclude, there was an article appeared in the Barnet Press, which was, I don't know, 10 years or less after I had been here, and I kept this clipping. It says, "Our man in the States, right, bringing his British temperament to the affairs of state, according to an advertisement in America's Washington Post, is John Noble, a native of Finchley, educated at Queen Elizabeth's Grammar School. Mr. Noble went to America 10 years ago for a temporary change of life, but since then he's settled in Washington and married an English girl." The advertisement featured him with a 3-column picture and a heading, "Meet John Noble," for the firm of modern electronic office equipment specialists by whom he is employed. He used to travel extensively between Southampton and New York aboard the Queen Elizabeth before settling in Washington. His company's machines type treaty arrangements in 8 different languages. And the advertisement caption says, "John's studies at Queen Elizabeth's Grammar School qualified him to meet the exacting demand of his customers." A pat on the back for Barnet.
Oh.
How did they hear about that? Did your parents put that
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
I think Peter Clark did it.
Oh.
Oh, did he really? Oh, how funny.
Is that?
Yeah.
Well, he gave it to the newspaper?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
I can't.
So Peter Clark